Hello, so this curriculum is designed for grades 6 to 8 and is going to mainly deal with an introduction to graphing data points. So my name is Dorsey and my favorite novels are The Great Gatsby and The Lord of the Flies, and I love playing piano. This is a picture of me. So let's move on to what we're going to learn today. In this lesson, students will be able to graph data points on a coordinate plane, whether they are given a table of values or an equation. They will be able to graph single data points, graph values when given in a table, and graph points from a given equation after this lesson. Let's move on. So what does a graph look like? So let's start with labeling the axes. Graphs often have an x and y axis, and sometimes in advanced math they'll sometimes have a z. You don't need to worry about that just yet. But graphs can have 2 corners, 1 corner, or even 4 corners. It doesn't even matter how many corners you have, but remember that graphs can be drawn differently with different scalings as well. So let's start. Coordinates can be represented as x, y, where the x represents the x value and the y represents a y value. First, let's go over the steps to plotting the points on a graph. When you're given a coordinate point in the form of x, y, we have to look at the x value first, which is highlighted in blue. The x value determines how far to the left or to the right you have to move. And if the x value is negative, you move to the left. And if the y value is positive, if the x value is positive, you move to the right. Okay, now let's look at the y value, which is highlighted in red. If the y value is negative, move down, and if it's positive, move up. The y value determines how far or up your coordinate point is. Moving on, let's go through the steps. So looking at the y value first, it is -3. That means we have to go down 3 steps, and that brings us to the point at -3. And then we go to the x value. We know that it is +4, so that means we have to go 4 units to the right. And that brings us to the point 4, -3. And that's how we plot the point on the graph. So here are some illustrations to help. So 4 to the right, 3 down, and that's a point. 4, -3. Okay, so this is another example, and let's go through the steps. Looking at the x value first, we know that it is -2, so that means we have to move 2 units to the left. Then, looking at the y value, it is +1. That means we have to go up 1 step. That brings us to the point -2, 1, and that's how we plot the point on the graph. Okay, last example. Looking at the y value first, we know that it is 0. That means we don't have to move at all. Then, looking at the y value, it is +4. That means we have to go up 4 steps, and that brings us to point 0, 4. Graphs can be seen in either vertical or horizontal forms. But how do we graph using this data? It's essentially the same thing as graphing points, but there's just more of them. Let's follow the same steps. But first, in a table of values and coordinate forms, let's give you guys a couple of seconds to graph the points by yourself. Pause this recording and play it when you're ready to check your answers. But what if we're given an equation like maybe this? These are all very important equations that you'll see. The steps are still pretty easy. So 1, we make a table of values using the graph, and then we write coordinate points, and then we graph. So let's start with the steps. Plug in at least 2 values into the equation, and then put them into coordinate points, and then connect the 2 values. So this is our first example. I'll give you a second to plug in the values in. So you should just pause the video and then come back when you're ready. So I'm assuming here that you're done plugging in the values. So here is my table of values. Let's put the values into coordinate points. Then we plot the points on a graph. Then we draw a line through the 4 points, and that's how we graph the equation. So let's see what we learned today. We learned how to plot single points on a coordinate graph, use the table of values to construct a graph, and graph points when given an equation. So here are some resources for practice. I honestly recommend these resources because it helps to keep practicing so that you know and reinforce what you learned today. So if you have any questions, you can find me at dorislee2003@gmail.com. And if you need more help, you can visit the website internsforgood.org. Thank you.